Hello, welcome, cadets, to the Fantasy Football Academy. You've got Johnny, John, and Blake, and we are here to give you our week 3 starts and sits. Before we get into that, we always love tracking who's winning and picking and smashing on our picks from the weeks before. So we'll look at week 2. John told you to fire up Jared Goff, and he ended up in another shootout with the Seahawks, just like last year. And John brought that up. So, a great call by him. I told you to sit Antonio Gibson, who had a long catch, but besides that, was very quiet. And then Blake told you to fire up Nico Collins, which ended up being a great call, as well as. John actually told us to start Zach Moss. So that was another absolutely great call. And all three of us actually exceeded our projections on sleepers there. But we're going to give the edge to Blake for winning that one. So Nico looking like a potential top 30 guy rest of way easy, right?
Mhm.
And I was watching Reception Perception. Like I like kind of following Matt Harmon and some of his tweets, and he was saying that he likes Nico. He likes the routes, specific, and how he's winning and he's creating separation, which is not something I was like 100% sure of. I haven't seen as much tape, I'll admit it, on him because he plays so far outside that like sometimes you don't see him on the film. But he's
Big
apparently
big
on
choke
all 20.
plays.
Yeah, deep targets. Seems to be getting the ball thrown to him by Stroud a lot, and they seem like they're going to be throwing all year. So, but a
Yeah.
good call by Blake, back-to-back winner on his sleeper picks. So looking like a guru. We'll have to see who he's got this week. Am I right? So let's start with our week 3 starts. Blake, what man of the hour? Let's get it. Let's hear who you think we should start this week.
Well, to be fair, I was the man of the hour after week one when I won all three of the categories. But this last week was a little bit closer. You guys stepped up your games a little bit, so we're all a little bit hot right now. Let's capitalize on that going into week three.
Love it.
My start of the week this week is Zay Flowers. Let's just be honest here. The Colts can't stop anybody through the air. Week one, they gave up monster points on the outside to Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley. Week two, it was that Nico Collins game. Tank Dell looked like a seasoned veteran out there in his second game ever. I mean, they can't stop anybody right now. The one thing was Kenny Moore in the slot there. Is a little bit of a tough matchup for slot receivers going in. And I had to do a little bit of work on Zay Flowers because I was assuming that he was doing most of his damage from the slot already this year. But he's all over the place. The way that they're utilizing him is really, really promising right now. He's only had about 48% of his production from the slot. And other than that, he's just beating guys on the outside also. They're lining him up all over the place. He's got about a fourth of his production comes on screens. He's got 8 catches already in the screen game, so they're using him purposefully and setting up plays for him to succeed there. Another fourth of his production is coming on intermediate routes over the middle of the field. Has another 8 or so catches in that area, and then a half of his production is on the deep ball. So they're also having him run deep and throwing it down the field to him, and he's succeeding in every area right now. He hasn't had that big boom week, but I'm assuming with the matchup, OBJ's out this week too, potentially, most likely. He's not practicing. He's got the ankle, and even if he does get out there, I'm sure he'll be on a snap count. Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar are the only two other guys to get targets from him on the outside. So I like Zay to even play even more on the outside this week and avoid Kenny Moore in the slot and really go up. Obviously, I know Mark Andrews is there, but as far as receiving targets, fire up Zay. He's gonna explode this week.
I love that. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be good, and he could possibly be a top 20 play this week.
And the other thing too is Lamar's running the ball less. I think he only had 3 designed runs in week one. I'm not sure exactly how many design runs he had in week two. He had a little bit more carries, but a lot of those were scrambles against a little bit better defense in week two. So the fact that they're with the Todd Monken scheme there, they seem like they're ready to keep Lamar inside the pocket and have him throw the ball 25, 30 times a game. So that's an even more of a reason to start a Ravens wide receiver this year.
Yeah, you'd love to see him get more comfortable in that offense, Lamar, right, as throughout the year. And Zay Flowers paying immediate dividends if you took a chance on him in redraft or dynasty. and really just looks good out there, right? So yeah, I like it. Be a good game, and hopefully it means that Lamar has a big week. So for me, my week 2 start is George Pickens, and I've seen some stuff online about like potential sell high candidate, right? Last week being inflated by a long touchdown. And the way I see it, it's like you've got no Deontay Johnson. He's a talented player. They are going to be playing in games where they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. And he's not up against a great secondary in the Raiders, right? I got to throw some shade at Blake here for saying to sit Gabe Davis last week, who played against the Raiders and had a great game. And I think they're like similar style receivers, right? They might not create all the separation in the world, but they can body out some of those weaker cornerbacks. And I think that Pickens will have his way against the Raiders. He'll be the go-to target and is a good start. Sorry, I threw you under the bus there, Blake.
No, I mean you win some, you lose some. I'm still of the mind that Gabe Davis is a hit or miss guy. He had a touchdown last week and that boosted his stat line, unfortunately for my record on the sits. But yeah, I like Pickens this week. He did his damage last week against the team that held T. Higgins to no catches on 8 targets, who then bounced back and had a monster week 2. Chase had a bad week 1 against that Cleveland Browns secondary too. So the fact that Pickens is doing damage against a team like that in a game like that too, weird game, lots of injuries, like slowed the pace down, and he still ended up doing well for you in your lineup with Deontay Johnson. I'm not sure if you mentioned that. I know that was in your notes, but Deontay Johnson's on IR now, so. And yeah, Freiermuth doesn't look like he's going to be much of a target like hog, like maybe some people thought he might be that like security blanket. I think every time Pickett drops back right now, he's looking for Pickens first. So like the start this week.
Cool. John, who you got for your week 3 start?
Yeah, so this one's a little surprising to me because I spent the whole offseason making fun of Brian Robinson, and I think one of our first videos me and Johnny made was just making fun of Brian Robinson. But he's the overall, I think he's running back 3 on the year so far. He's got 20 touches per game. He's only started in 55% of like sleeper leagues, so I think that number's got to be a little higher considering what he's done the first 2 weeks of the season. But Gibson's no threat to his work in this offense right now currently. I think you got to continue to ride Robinson till the wheels fall off. I will say I passed him in most redraft leagues because he didn't pass the eye test for me. He's just a north and south runner. He looks a lot more nimble and a little bit quicker. I'm not sure if that had anything to do with his injury, with him getting shot last year, but yeah, he looks like a much more improved, better player, and I'm gonna ride him into week 3 against Buffalo.
Hey, let me ask you this, John, because I like to take. I had Brian Robinson in Dynasty right now, and there's definitely some things to like. He's getting all the carries, 19 carries week 1, 18 carries week 2. Had a nice catch in week 2. I mean, still only getting like 2 targets a game, but one of those went for a nice like 30-yard chunk play on a screen.
Right.
Against Denver too, against a nice little defense there. But he's still only playing 50% of the snaps. I think that's like his usage is a little misleading. They're kind of utilizing their rookie and Gibson's still getting out there to steal some snaps. I like Robinson's efficiency, and he is passing the eye test this year. But who would you start him? Let's say over like Jerome Ford or something like that, who's on the rise as well.
I would start Brian Robinson this week over Jerome Ford just because of the matchup. I think Ford's going against Tennessee. They've been really stingy against the run. You got to factor that in with, Kareem Hunt is being signed. It's not like this guy doesn't know the offense. He was there. He was a Brown not too long ago, so he could be potentially.
You think?
I think he's definitely going to be on the field. I think it's a lot easier for a running back to come in and come in and
especially when he knows
productive.
the offense.
Yeah, and he knows the offense, so it's not like he's a stranger off the street. So
But let me say this too, because
go ahead.
Brian Robinson's got Buffalo this week, who just held Josh Jacobs to 9 carries for -2 yards in week 2. That's the only reason why I'm having this dilemma.
Dude, this is the beginning of the offense. This is a new era, man. Like he's putting up 30 burgers left and right. I just want to jump
Cool.
in because I want to apologize about the Brian Robinson take too. He looks like a different player. He looks like a big guy who's moving fast and is hard to tackle and is coordinated. And like kudos to him. And if you watch our panic or patience episodes, you will see that Gibson for me this week, it's time to panic because this guy has taken a hold of this role, isn't going to give it back. And if the snap shares can be misleading, Blake, in my opinion, because they're running him like a dog. You just mentioned he had 20
20
carries.
touches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's all
Yeah.
you really can ask for from a set it and forget it kind of guy. And when he's off the field, he's taking a breather while Antonio Gibson is being forced to work like a dog in pass pro. So like it's the best situation you could have. The matchup is tough, but that is a tough kind of call between those two running backs. But Tennessee is really good, and when he brings up Hunt
True.
just stepping right in, that's kind of scary. I'll be honest. Like,
Yeah.
but
True.
okay. So that's our week 1 starts, and I'm really excited to see how those unfold. Let's get into, week 1, week 3 starts. Blake, you want to lead us off there?
Yeah, on the sits, yeah, for sure. So this guy it might seem intuitive to sit this guy this week, but he's coming off a 30-point game against the Cardinals, and that's Daniel Jones. It was ugly for most of that game too in the first half. I think their 5 longest plays of the game came in the late third quarter, fourth quarter. So they maybe figured something out. But look, they're tied for first in sacks allowed, tied for first in pressures allowed. Daniel Jones has been sacked 10 times and he's been pressured 35 times through 2 games. I mean, if you watch that Cowboys game, it was scary. I mean, I was concerned for his health. If I was his loved ones, I would have been terrified. I would turn that game off. Honestly, that O-line doesn't look like they figured it out even in week 2. I mean, it was a little bit better, but they're playing the Cardinals. I don't think we're expecting the Cardinals to lead the league in pressures, and he was still running for his life for most of that game. And the thing is like teams aren't even blitzing. They're rushing 3-4 guys and getting there. He's like bottom half of the league in blitzes face. So it's not even a matter of like, if they can hold for 2-3 seconds, there's going to be some guys open down the field. Their teams are able to play coverage looks right now and still get pressure. That's a disaster for most quarterbacks. And he's got the Niners this week. It's not going to get any easier. It's going to get harder. I think they're even scarier than that Cowboys defense. Both teams are really good, but the Niners, I wouldn't want to face them with that O-line. Barkley out too. I mean, you can't even rely on the running game this week without Barkley. Matt Breida is not going to really do it for you. I just think it's going to be a struggle for that whole offense, and I don't think Daniel Jones is going to outperform guys like C.J. Stroud. I would start Russell Wilson over him this week. Even Sam Howell, even though he has a tough matchup. I just am really concerned about that Giants offense this week with all this like perfect storm of misery, it seems like.
Very tough out there for Daniel Jones this week, it sounds like. And I don't agree with any of the points. I think when you got a guy like Barkley who falls out of the situation, you're in trouble, Anyways, so my week 3 sit will be Khalil Herbert. And that is because that offense is a mess. And I expect a wonky game. If you've heard what's come out from Fields, he's trying to play hero ball out there this weekend. I'm calling it like he's going to try and show us something special, which either means him throwing the ball or running the ball. And maybe Khalil Herbert gets a long catch, and I'm totally wrong. But it's a tough game against the Chiefs D, and I'm actually going to fire them up in any leagues where they still play defense and special teams as a position. Again, they just fired their defensive coordinator over some really weird stuff that nobody's talking about. The O-line, there's, I think, 1 or 2 at least expected to miss this game. It's just not a good setup for him, and he doesn't have an overwhelming snap share. The rookie Rojo looks really solid in his snaps. I see them working him in more. They like him on passing down work. I think there will be a lot of passing down work trying to catch up with the Chiefs offense. I'm going to sit Khalil Herbert this week if I have him.
Yeah, I was actually on the fence to make Johnson my sleeper.
Seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's been reports. I saw a report already that they're looking at Rojo like he might take over this backfield sooner than later. I don't know how much credence there is to that, but it was a source that's close to the team. I'm not following the Bears super closely. I don't think any general fan of the league is, but when I hear like the beat reporters talking about that stuff, I pay attention.
Okay, well, let's move on to John's week 3 sit. Who you got, John?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Damian Pierce. He's not really been the guy that I thought he was going to be to start the year. I think a lot of people in the fantasy community expected him to be a breakout. I was a lot lower than him when we talk about redraft leagues, but this O-line is completely wrecked right now. It's one of the worst in the leagues. They get Tunsil back this week, which is it's a plus. But overall, Pierce has played about 45% of snaps in both of these games, which is a huge concern. Right now, Vegas is over under for Pierce rushing against the Jags is 45 yards, so that's pretty miserable. Yeah, and I expect the Texans to have the Jaguars in the air. This is a team that that could be had through the air. So if the Texans are going to move the ball, it's going to be through the air, and I don't expect Pierce to have a very good amount of those targets as well. So I got him as a sit this week. I don't really know how you could be starting this guy unless you're really thin at the position. But he's off my board.
I think he's playing
Yeah, I think
snaps too, which is bad. Yeah.
It's been miserable. I think their linemen. I think 4 or 5 were hurt. If I'm not mistaken, that's what I heard. I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah, I think the sad part though is that there are people that are going to have to start him this week just because of the injuries to the position, and you spent a 4th, 5th round draft pick on him. But the Vegas over under at 45 yards, I mean that's miserable, especially when he's just not going to get you any catches for anything significant. That his value even before the season started was purely on the ground and hopefully getting in the end zone 10, 12, 15 times this year, and that just doesn't seem like that's even working right now. So yeah, a lot of tough news to swallow if you're a Pierce owner, especially this week.
If you're forced to start him, you hope he falls into the end zone, and that's a big if this week. So
Yeah, but I think to this point, parting thoughts, if you've got a Zach Moss, you're probably firing up Zach Moss, right? Like there are some potential options, Jerome Ford, right? And Josh Kelly even, right?
I think it's close with those
Gus
guys.
Edwards too. Gus Edwards too.
Yeah, maybe at least
well,
because
no,
it's a better
Justice Hill is banged up.
I take Gus over Pierce this week.
That's a good point, but they just won't use him. That doesn't matter. Like they're so weird with that in Baltimore. They'll just be like, yeah, he doesn't matter. We'll bring someone off the street to get the other 50%. Like Gus is not getting passing down work. That's not how that's going to work, right? So,
True. But Pierce or Gus Edwards, you're going Pierce.
I'm going
Edwards. I like your point because it's an offense where at least they're going to ground and pound it a little bit still. Like everyone's talking about the monkey
and they
offense, but they'll play a little bully ball here and there, and they like to run it at near the goal line, and they'll hand it to Gus. They'll save Lamar, I think, which has kind of been. I keep talking about wanting Lamar to go off because I think everyone had him as a good top 5 quarterback this year, and he is playing decent. I think first game was rusty, looked better in the second game, but it's like they're not. I think they are going to be more careful with deploying him at the goal line, him in general, and Ryan Clark said he's going to be a better quarterback, but it's going to be worse for your fantasy team, and people were struggling to get it, but I kind of get it, and that's why I'm saying I hope that he has a good week and kind of starts to really fire up 30-point games and stuff, because it's I can see him handing it off when they get into the red zone a lot, and some of the things that you loved about him, like scoring that 6-point rushing touchdown, being, you get it. All right, guys. Well, that concludes our week 3 starts and sits. Please drop a like, comment, subscribe, and ask us any questions you have. We are here to help you win your fantasy leagues. We've been on fire with some of these picks, and we're hoping to keep the momentum rolling. So thanks for your support, and we'll see you next week.
Adios.